Hey guys! So I made this video to help you plan out your composition a little bit easier. So I'm going to go over some things that will help you out. So we've already learned about Kandinsky. So we're going to try to keep in mind what we learned from him and the way he chose to place his objects, what he worked with. So I have a little Kandinsky reference paper here that I'll give in the classroom. And if you're not in the classroom, you can just reference his work in the media album. We also talked about Bruce Gray's art, and he used a lot of circles and line and color in his work. So we're going to be using these as our inspiration, and then you're going to be creating your own composition. Okay, so we will be coloring this later on. So make sure it's simple enough that you can color it, but also complex enough that it's interesting to the eye. So Kandinsky's got tons and tons of colors in his work, and he used a lot of different shapes, not just circles. And then Bruce Gray mainly just stuck to doing circles and line, but he did this composition in a way that there's a lot of eye-catching elements in it. So it's interesting to look at. There's a lot going on, so you want that kind of quality to it. I have some student examples from way back in the day. This was middle school, so I placed some criteria on them. I told them they could only use circles, and they had to put 3 to 5 lines going across their work. So if you look in this one, you can see that there's some refracting lines that go right through the work. That was to break up the picture, so they had more things to color in to make it interesting. You also see how some of them chose to do some stripes in some of these boxes, which I think turned out really successfully. But I want to give you guys a little bit more creative freedom. So you can use shapes other than just circles, and you can use lines other than just straight lines. But this is a non-objective artwork, so it shouldn't look like anything realistic. It shouldn't look like a sailboat or a person. It should just be you experimenting with shapes. Okay, so the final thing, I have only 2 examples from high school, but I have this one. Very interesting composition, lots going on, and they chose a cool color scheme to color the final piece, which you'll be choosing a color scheme, a color theory that we talked about. I really like this one. So some of the shapes are a little bit made up, but they went with like this diamond shape quality, and they spread their color theory throughout. So up here we have the, in this corner, they did the cool colors, and then they transitioned to a warm color vibe going in this corner, which I think adds a nice area of emphasis. It gives our eye a focal point to look at. And of course, they used a lot of nice values and shading with their colored pencil. So that's one of the techniques you'll demonstrate. But today we're just focusing on composition. So I've got my little cheat sheet here so I can remember some of the principles of design, because these are super important to know when we're creating a piece of work. Okay. So in this discussion post, there was a video of a woman making a composition, and she talked about these 5 basic rules to keep in mind. So I wrote them down here, but they're also in your discussion post. Using a variety of shapes. So what does that mean? So either using many different shapes or using a variety of the same shape. So in this one, the student used a variety of circles. Next rule, repetition and various sizes. So you'll want to, if you're picking a circle, you're going to want to repeat the circle or whatever shape you pick over and over again in various sizes. And then rotating and overlapping. That's especially important if you pick a square. You can really make it look interesting. A square or a diamond, you can really make it look interesting by rotating it. And then you're going to want to use a lot of overlapping. That's going to give your project interest. That's one of the project criteria. And then cropping, that means letting some of the circles go off the side of the paper. Like this one here, you can see it's going off of the paper. And then lastly, before you're done, just check the placement of things. Check your negative space. So in here, just checking and making sure, okay, did I leave too much negative space? Did I leave not enough negative space? So just keep that in mind when you're planning. Okay. I'm gonna tilt this down. Okay. So I've already got some interesting compositions laid out. This one's a little hard to see because it's in pencil. It's a triangle composition. So the way I did this was I cut a triangle piece and then I just traced it over and over again. I've got a pretty interesting circle composition here, and I used some refracting lines to go through it to create more interest for when I go to color it. And you can see some of the shapes are overlapping, some of them are underlapping, and it's a really nice spread out composition, very organized. Here's one similar concept, but I chose to put a different shape in there. I have a triangle with several circles. This one really reminds me of Kandinsky's work. I was kind of looking at his work and thinking about his work when I was planning this out. So there's enough detail in it that it's going to be interesting when I color it, but just not too much detail. If you were really vibing with the radial balance, so balance was one of the principles of design. So this radial balance is hard to accomplish because it's going to take a little bit of measuring. Okay, but I think this composition is pretty successful. So if this is really appealing to you, you might want to consider going with a radial look to your final. This one, I was thinking about the principles of design. I was thinking about emphasis. I think it's really interesting when I rotate it around. The emphasis is kind of right here in the middle where these circles are being pressed together. And the way I was able to really enhance that was with the triangle shapes kind of piercing in towards it. So arrows are a really good thing to use. Triangular arrows are a really good thing to point the viewer's direction to. Also, this one I think embodies movement because it's almost like a stream of circles that are going through the middle of the piece. And now, just for fun, I'm gonna just do one more with you guys. I am going to demonstrate using a square. I just think be careful about what you pick because I do think if you don't have something like this at home, you're gonna wanna go with a circle because so many different things are circular that you can find at your house. So definitely go with a circle if you're doing this at home. But I wanna show you some of the hard aspects of picking something that's square because you're kind of a little bit limited if you don't have something like this. So I'm just going to start right away. So remember, I'm keeping in mind some of those rules that we talked about. The variety, the repetition, rotate and overlap, crop, and then check the placement of your positive and negative space. So I'm going to try to rotate this one. Rotate it a little bit more. Kind of like that. And again, you might have to do a few of these. So really pick something that you're going to want to stick with for the final coloring. All right, now I've overlapped all of these, but true overlapping kind of looks a little bit different like this. So I'm going to put this shape over top, but I'm going to make it look like it's tucked underneath. So those are just two different ways you can do overlapping. Now, this composition is looking kind of squished together. So I am going to let some of these Squares go off my paper to add more interest. And lastly, I might want to think about adding some of those refracting lines through it, just so I'll have something more interesting to color in the end. And these lines can overlap, underlap. Like maybe I don't want them to go through this big piece in the front. This is really going to help when we go to do the coloring. Again, another really interesting composition that did not take me long to make. Let's do another one. All right, this one I'm going to do some circles, but I'm also going to try to add some other kind of shapes and lines within it. Okay. I actually just thought of doing like a half and half technique. This tool is super awesome for doing circles with, because all you have to do is hold it down and then put your marker in one of the holes and just trace around. I could make tons and tons of circles like this. It's not working for me. I gotta switch to pencil and then just go outline it later. Ooh, that one did not turn out so great. But I am determined to figure out a way to fix it, because that's what artists do. If they mess up, they figure out ways to fix it. All right, how am I gonna fix this though? Not exactly what I wanted there. I am determined to fix it. All right, I was going to try to make another circle over that, but okay, let's keep going. That's bugging me a little bit, but I'm not going to let it worry me, just for the sake of the demonstration. Okay. And then I have some of these really fun stencils that I wanted to incorporate. The thing with this stencil is you don't want it to look like a stencil. You want it to look like you actually drew it. So that's, I think, is hard when I'm teaching. It's like I just find kids just tracing this stencil over and over again. Don't do that. Try to use it to maybe like define some curves and some shapes, but you don't want to just trace it endlessly. All right, so I'm gonna let this kind of be the circle side, and then this one be kind of the square side. And this middle line is my barrier. I just kind of made that up, so we'll see how it turns out. So far, I'm really liking this besides that. So I'm just going to color this in. Now that I've committed to doing a dark area, I want to add that same contrast somewhere else in my piece. I think that'll help it unify the piece a little bit better. And by covering that up, it makes it look like I meant to do it that way. And that is what an artist is always trying to show. If you make a little mistake, how can you make it look better? So maybe to also add emphasis, I'll color this one in. Ah, that looks so much better now. Now, how can I do another darker shape or mark elsewhere? Okay, I'm starting to become happy with this. I was almost thinking it was a failure, but I did fix it. You're really looking for accuracy with tracing. If you mess up, I would just restart or try to fix it. You don't want little errors. And I am doing this in a notebook, so it's kind of hard for me to get over and finish that other end of the paper, but I made it work. And I'm pretty happy with this, actually. Ooh, this is looking cool. I really feel the need to put something there. And I don't know if I'm breaking any artist rules, but I'm going to actually stick with a triangle to kind of break up the monotony a little bit. Cool. All right. I feel like I could do this all day long, but why don't we'll just do one more. Let's see how long the video is. Okay, we'll just do one more. All right. This one is kind of reminding me of what Bruce Gray did. And actually, just to make this a little bit more interesting, I'm going to do a thicker line. Got kind of like an asymmetrical balance going here. I feel like this, I'm going to make it look like this circle wasn't meant to be over here. So they're like trying to take take it away. Ooh, I really like what I did there. Interesting. I'm going to look at Kandinsky's work once again just for some inspiration to see what he did. He's got just some lines here that don't go anywhere. I really like this box quality too. So I'm going to try that. So please use the resources, please use the examples to help you out. I really am just interested to see what you can come up with just using some simple line and some simple shape. Just be creative. Only thing I wish I changed about this one was doing this at an angle. That's the only thing I don't really like about it, but it still looks cool. And I think I'm going to add squares over here just because it feels like this is the square land. Cool. And a curved line just because. And I'm going to leave it not finished. Interesting. Okay. I could keep going and going, but thanks for watching me, and good luck with your composition.